Yo, what is up guys? You are rocking it here with the one and only Jay Fuzzy. Welcome to Fuzzy's Action Reaction videos guys. So before I start the video, I just want to say for anyone that's watching and hasn't subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell notification so you guys don't miss out. Let's go! What's up? How you doing? Today we're whipping it up on a different direction. I'm going to be talking about my life story, about how I broke out of my addiction, how I overcome all my anxiety and depression, and how I got to where I am today. So I'm also going to be talking about the time I was homeless and how I battled through that while I was battling through my addiction also. There's my long period of incarceration and how I survived through that. With my anxiety and depression, it didn't make it any easier after being released out of prison and being institutionalized. I'll be talking about the effects of being institutionalized and how long before I was able to integrate back into the community. So there's a lot to cover, but I want to share this with you guys because I want to be an open book. I got nothing to hide, you know, and this is actually showing you guys my improvement and the achievements that I made to make this change in my life. This was such a big, massive turnaround for me and my family, and also my friends, especially my partner who has stuck by me through thick and thin. But this is also for me to share with anybody out there that is struggling through the same situation that I have been in the past. It's never too late to change, you know, just reach out. You can always reach out like I did. Don't be stubborn, you know, reach out for help when you need it, because I did the same thing, you know, and it's only going to get better from then on. So I'm blessed to be here today, to be able to get my story out and share it out there with the viewers who are watching today. Thank you. Before I give any more away, let's just get into the video, yeah? Let's go! So it's only recently when I started learning more about myself and my life, about my mental illness and how severe it was. And if I had to date back to when it first started, I'd probably say back in my early teens. I was dealing with a lot of anxiety and depression at that point. Back in my teens, my anxiety and depression were built from a lot of loneliness. I was so isolated back in my teens. I always felt like I was always alone. Even though I had family and friends, it's not the fact that I was actually alone physically, I was more mentally alone. I always felt isolated, and I was always shy when meeting new people or even girls, you know. I would just seize up and just not be able to speak. It's hard for me to talk, especially when I was talking to a girl back in my teens. I would seize, back off and shut down like a little boy, you know. And it was always difficult for me at that age to be able to talk to girls. I hadn't told my family about my mental health issue and how I was dealing with my mental illness, and depression and anxiety was a big part of my life back in my teens, and that was something I found hard dealing with on my own, and I didn't feel like I needed to tell anyone because I was more worried about people judging me, and that was always dangerous because I would bottle everything up. Having to deal with this mental illness on my own was difficult for me at that age because it was hard for me to be able to find someone that I can trust to be able to open up about my problems and my issues and how I was dealing with it. It wasn't the fact that I didn't trust anyone. I had family that I could trust. My mother, my father, my brothers, my sister. It was just, I was dealing with this issue so badly on my own that I was more scared that if I had said anything that I'd been neglected from the family. And I didn't want that. Not to say that they would neglect me. I know they wouldn't have neglected me if I had spoken up about it, and I probably would have gotten more help. It's just, that's the thing about mental illness, you know, it's these tricks that keep playing in your mind, you know, and you kind of manipulate yourself into thinking that something is happening when it isn't, or you think something's going to happen, but it probably wouldn't. So with all these roles that were playing in my mind, it was clear that I started believing in things that never existed. And that was the icing on the cake for my mental illness. And it was obvious to say that it was already heading in a difficult direction. So I ran away from home at the age of 12, and I went and stayed with friends, a crowd that you wouldn't want to be getting yourself mixed up with at that age anyway. So I started smoking cigarettes at that point because I wanted to explore and fit in with the crowd. Fitting in isn't always the best idea, especially when you're a 12-year-old and you don't even know what you're doing yourself. But I remember clear as day, like it was yesterday, walking through the Westfield shopping mall in Belconnen, and I remember turning a corner and seeing my mother and father there who I had surprisingly bumped into after not seeing them for quite some time. And that's pretty hard for a 12-year-old, you know. So it was a pretty touching moment for us, especially for my parents, because they were so blessed that I had come back to them in their arms and back home where I had belonged. But I remember at that point too, even though I was nervous, but I remember telling Mum that I was smoking cigarettes and expecting for her to get mad at me, but surprisingly, she didn't. Even though she did care, but she didn't at the same time, because she was just glad that I was at home. I'm just glad I don't smoke cigarettes anymore, which is good, because it's a filthy habit. The reason why I'm speaking about this point is because this is where it all started. So the cigarette smoking turned to pot smoking. So I started smoking marijuana at the age of 13. But at that point I was only experimenting and wanting to explore and fit in with the cool kids, you know. But I remember at the age of 16 is when it started hitting on me heavily, you know, and I started becoming that bong smoker where I was smoking marijuana 10 to 20 times a day. And that was, yeah, that was a very hippie moment in my life. But never again. I remember because I was smoking marijuana at that point, and it got to the point where it wasn't really doing anything for me. And you know, I got to the age of 18, and that's when I started drinking alcohol. And I started drinking alcohol at the age of 16, sorry, but it didn't really affect me as much until it hit me at the age of 18, where I started drinking heavily, and it got to the point where I was drinking every night. It was not until the age of 21, you know, my 21st birthday, I remember sitting in my bedroom. It was at the age of 20. I remember I was at the age of 20, and I was sitting in my bedroom, and I remember you know, because I was kind of smoking marijuana again a little bit, but not too much. But it wasn't really affecting me as much, you know. So I remember my brother and his friend had come in at that point, and I was just sitting there watching TV, and I was kind of bored out of my brain, and I was almost wanting to go to sleep, but I couldn't sleep at that point. So they had came into the bedroom, and they sat down, and I remember they pulled out this little sachet of white powdery stuff, you know, and at that point I was interested. I was like, well, what are you guys doing, you know? But as any young adult at that age, you know, you want to experiment and explore, and when you see something new that you haven't tried before, you want to try it, right? So that was the beginning of my heroin addiction. Not happy to say that, but yeah. So for years from that age, I had been battling with heroin addiction for so many years, you know, and it's just sad that it's gotten to this point for me to realize that it's not the life I want, you know. And I clearly remember the reasons why I also wanted to use heroin as well, is because I felt like it was the one drug that was tackling and blocking every emotion and every trauma and every pain that I was feeling in my body, in my mind at that point. I've struggled with anxiety and depression for so long that I felt like I found the key to tackling that illness. So now making that choice to use heroin at that point was probably one of the worst choices I've made in my life. You know, and because at that point I'm now dealing with not only the anxiety and depression, but on top of all that, my drug addiction. How am I going to get out of this now? So I'm going to leave it there, guys, because it's a pretty long story, and I've actually planned to do this in 3 different chapters. So if you guys haven't subscribed and you're watching this, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell notification so you guys don't miss out on the next 2 chapters. I also want to say that for any teens and young ones that are watching my videos too, just remember, drugs are not cool. They're only going to make your life miserable. I also want to wish everyone that's watching a happy new year and the best of wishes to your future. Make sure you got some good resolutions coming up. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you look out for tomorrow's one. More interesting stories for me to tell you. So until the next one, I'll catch you on the flip side. Adios.